Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today we're going to go back to exploring some more solo role-playing stuff. And one of the things that I've learned, and like I said, I'm learning this really kind of from scratch. I mean, I've done some in the past, and you've seen the previous videos, but all in all, a sort of serious look at solo role-playing, not only for just my own entertainment, but also for helping me learn new game systems as well as becoming a better game master at large. A couple of the things that I've learned is that while you can use last video we talked about some oracles, some game master emulators and stuff, and while you can use those to sort of generate ideas on the fly, one of the things I learned, and we're going to go down to the table here in just a minute, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I've learned. But one of the things I learned that sort of creates the groundwork, a pathway for a new campaign with a character, is that if the character, if there's a lot of detail of stuff built into the character first, if you do some research and you do some legwork into building a character with some interesting background details, it's going to lay that sort of pathway for some really, really cool adventure ideas. Now, one of the ways I did that, and I'll show you that once we get into the table, but the thing I'm going to show you today is this. I'm going to talk about using the Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide to sort of set the pillars of adventure for your solo role-playing experience. So let's jump down to the table, go down into the library, and we'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here we are at the table, down here in the library. And for the campaign that I've been playing through, for my sort of foray into solo role-playing, I've been using the Essentials Kit. Now, this is the 5th edition Essentials Kit. I am already very familiar with D&D, and especially 5th edition, as well as many of the other editions. But one of the reasons why I decided to do this to start with my sort of solo role-playing experience is because I knew the game pretty well. And I figured this would be the easiest way that, to rather than stumbling into this and using the GM emulators and stuff that we talked about in the last video, I thought I would start with this. And then as I was once I was comfortable with the emulators and some of the other information, I thought I would start to jump into learning other game systems. So to further my understanding of the Conan 2D20 game from Modiphius, I've been using, the emulator. Now that I know the emulators well, I've been trying to further my thing on that as well too. So I've started a mini campaign using Conan and using the emulator to do some adventures in that universe as well too. But I started with this, and the character that I picked was a pre-generated character from the starter kit, from the D&D starter kit. And the reason I did this was because Beother is his name, and he was a level 1 fighter, folk hero. And the reason I picked this was because it was already fully detailed out. I had all my personality traits already out there, and I also had a background on the character sheet. It was already sort of predetermined for this character. And like I said, I found in so far my foray into this world of solo role-playing that the background for this character really, really, really pushed my adventure in the direction already sort of, not I won't say predetermined, but it gave me a lot of great adventure hooks for my way to go. So for starting out with this, I wanted to figure out what my first adventure would be, and what my motivation for this character was in this world. And so I've been using the Fandelver map and stuff in here, the Sword Coast map that comes with the Essentials kit. to be my sort of map. And it's nice because it actually has a hex grid on it, and I've been using that with a small token to show where my character is at and where my quest goal is at when I go. But the background of this really set up a great already sort of push for my adventures in the solo idea. One of them was my personal goal, which is already listed here, and it's to drive off the dragon. This is the ruins of Thunder Tree call to you. This is where my family and friends once lived in prosperity, and are now reduced to menial labor because there's a dragon there. And it says that my personal goal is to drive off or slay the dragon, and prove yourself to everyone that I'm the real hero, that I'm the folk hero of this area. And so I decided that would be my driving goal, and that would be the beginning of my adventure. But I needed to learn more about the dragon. I might have never had seen a dragon. In fact, through the emulator, I found out that I don't even know what kind of dragon it is, because my family have left Thunder Tree because of the oppression of the dragon. So as a child, I didn't even really know what kind of dragon it was, which dragon, who the dragon was, that kind of stuff as well too. And so I used the emulator to tell me that in fact, in the Essentials kit, one of the magic items is a Dragon Slayer sword. And so I went on this adventure to go try to find this sword, and that's kind of where my adventure was. But it was because of the background that I really decided I wanted to look at this book for when I wanted to create my own character from scratch, rather than use a pre-generated character like this, that I would use this to create a character for my solo role-playing stuff, for everything from Conan to any other sort of game that I might use as a solo idea. This is a book I've talked about before. I've done a review of this before on the channel. This is by James D'Amato. He runs the podcast, the One Shot podcast as well too. But what this book is, and what really makes this book interesting, is creating a background for your character. And I think that this is, in my experience so far with the solo role-playing aspect, is to use this to create, before I even decide anything about the world or the adventure that I'm going on or where I'm going to start this campaign, that I want to sit down with this book and create a character that's fully sort of fleshed out, that has a background story already in place, that will give me adventure prompts, that will give me storytelling ideas to further those adventures. And this is the great book for that. It does a lot of things like who my associates are, where I'm from. And it has a lot of sort of like ideas where you roll a d6 and it will give you a personality trait. It does a lot of great, really cool stuff. Where I'm from, where your character is actually from. You choose the sort of place. Are you from a tribe, a village, a town, a metropolis? And it gives you some ideas in there as well too. It gives you a lot of these sort of like almost Mad Lib kind of ideas where you're adding in sort of answering questions. Choose one of these answers and then fill in some details about that as well too. So this is really, really good into building sort of the ideas of a background story for your character, which gives you a lot of plot hooks to further the adventure or to even begin the adventure. So like what I did with this pre-generated character is I simply looked at the background. My personal goal is to drive off a dragon. Well, how do I do that? That gave me instant hooks already as to where I'm going to start, what I'm going to do. So I know I'm down near, the southern part of the Sword Coast. I used the emulator to try to figure out where it was I needed to go, where the warrior's tomb was, where the sword could be found. Used the emulator to figure out what was there when I got there, that kind of stuff, in order for me to get the sword. And then learn along the way who the dragon was, what kind of dragon it was, and so I could be prepared for that kind of stuff. And it began to unfold this amazing story. And so then when I started to create my own characters for a separate sort of campaign, I decided to use this to give me that fully fleshed out detail. Now you can also use the backgrounds in, the ideas and stuff in the core rulebook or in the essentials kit and stuff as well too. But this really, really fleshes out a lot of details that you're not going to find in those books as well too. So, for instance, there's this great section on where you're from and who's in charge, and did the people respect the authority and power? Who was in charge? What was your place in that society and stuff as well too. There's a lot of great stuff in this book. And now the great thing about this book, and I really appreciate what James did with this, is it levels up with your character. So I don't know if you can really see it on the camera, but it's broken down into sections. So low-level characters, mid-level characters, high-level characters, and it has things that will level up with you. So as your character gets bigger and more powerful, they will give you further details into your character is always constantly evolving, right? So there's going to be new things that pop up that from your background or things that you've already encountered. And so per whatever level your character's at, this goes along with you. Your passions might change and stuff as well too. So this is a great book, and I highly recommend, if you're going to start solo role playing, to pick up this copy of this book and use it to create a fully fleshed out character before you actually start an adventure. Know who your character is. Find out where they're from, what they did as a child, what their parents did, all that kind of great stuff. And it will really help define where your campaign is going to start, or even just your solo one-shot adventure, and will determine a lot of things in the future for you there as well too. So until next time, I'm Questwise, and I am out.